Our science department has had many recent developments. We are very proud of our recent connections with QUT as they enable the boys to help preserve the coral reefs of the Great Barrier Reef and look after the future.
A few added facts. The Great Barrier Reef is 300,000 to about 500,000 years old. Now, that's pretty significant when we're talking about climate change because it has changed a lot over those times, okay? So when we talk about climate change, it's flux. This has survived ice ages. At the moment, we face rising ocean temperatures, which are probably the biggest, and that comes again from climate change. 600 different species of coral makes it the most diverse ocean ecosystem on the planet is our Great Barrier Reef, so that's pretty cool.
It is very important for us to learn about the corals and experience them so we can feed the information to QUT, and that therefore I could have an impact in stopping the bleaching event in the Great Barrier Reef, and I can make a change to the corals around the world.
Using this information, we are going to communicate, inform and educate the public about these issues, helpfully creating a more sustainable and healthy marine environment in the future.
So what builds the Great Barrier Reef? Well, it's those little guys there. That little green dude in the middle, he's a polyp. He's about 1 millimetre in size. He's built one of the largest structures on the planet. So we're going to go over why those kind of things are important. Now that polyp there is part of a colonial coral, and the other type of coral that we're going to look at are solitary corals, which you'll have both in your systems.
We are now fortunate enough to have our own fish tank and coral aquarium down in the marine labs. We have now over 20 different species of corals, along with many fish, such as starfish, sea cucumbers, snails, and another whole variety.
We started to propagate our own corals last year, which was really fun and interesting, watching them grow and survive under various conditions. In Term 4, we studied and analysed the current status of the Great Barrier Reef and also threats and risks to other reefs, which include the processes of ocean acidification and coral bleaching, which are mainly caused by rising sea temperatures and global warming, making more extreme weather events occur more regularly.
So as climate begins to change, as we get more and more, say, port developments on the Great Barrier Reef and dredging going on and things like this, where we get these big upturns of sediment or influxes of sediment during the La Nina periods where we get flooding, and we get these big influxes, how are those corals going to survive the Great Barrier Reef? And we can do that with the microcosm that is Moreton Bay. Moreton Bay is perfect for us to be able to establish how the Great Barrier Reef and how all reefs globally are going to be able to mitigate or survive this stress, and what corals we can expect to do well in those environments and what corals won't. So that's what I want you guys to do. You are going to use microscopes, you're going to capture how that sediment is being removed. This video here shows pulsing, much similar to the pulsed inflation that was the bleaching, and it shows a mucus net. So if you look closely, you'll see it all starts to move together at one point, and there seems to be a web that brings it all together. So what some coral do is that they create this mucus layer on the outside of them, stick everything together, and then they just slough it off, slide it all off. And that's what you can see going on here.
We were lucky enough to get involved with a marine biologist from QUT named Brett Lewis. With him, we are going to research Moreton Bay and surrounding areas, looking at the corals which inhabit it. These corals, over the past decade, have surrounded large amounts of sediment problems. We are then going to use these corals in our own labs and perform a series of tests. In these tests, we are going to observe the sediment rejection processes undergone by these corals.
Showing coral bleaching for the very first time. We show just over to the right there, you'll see clouds of zooxanthellae being removed from the coral. Now this was done showing high sea surface temperatures of about 30 to 32 degrees. That's not that huge, but they were sustained. So the biggest thing with temperature change is not that the temperature is changing, it's that it's staying changed. So we have longer periods where we can have weeks and weeks of these high temperatures, and it's doing this to the corals. Now, if we can get that to drop back down, we'll be fine. You know, the reef will bounce back, all that kind of stuff. But at the moment, because we have those extremes of El Nino and extremes of La Nina happening more and more regularly, we're having longer and longer periods of temperature change during those times. So, does anyone, in 2011, what cycle do you think we were on? 2011, we had the floods, La Nina, right? So, and the last 2 years, where we've had the first back-to-back mass bleaching on the coral reef, what do you think was happening then? El Nino, bingo, right? So we can start to predict when threats are going to come around, and we can hopefully begin to mitigate them.
We can better prepare ourselves for periods of El Nino by putting structures in place to stop sediment running into the Great Barrier Reef. With this gained knowledge from our experiments, we can see that sediment is a huge factor in the bleaching of corals. By removing this factor, we may allow these corals to flourish into the future.
So if it's being done by us and it's not natural, we have an opportunity to change it, right? Because if we can induce it, then we can stop it.
And therefore I will be making a difference to the Great Barrier Reef and possibly worldwide.
I really enjoy participating in marine studies because I feel like I'm doing my part in helping corals be more sustainable and healthier for the future.
We can do this by managing our waste, stop building around areas that can affect the Great Barrier Reef, which may stop sediment moving into the Great Barrier Reef in the future.
This joint venture we're doing with Brett Lewis from QUT is very exciting. The boys get to learn about some real life challenges of local corals from Moreton Bay. We're very lucky, we're well resourced, great aquarium, lots of new equipment the boys have got their access to, looking at how the corals survive close up with the coping mechanisms. And this is very important because there's going to be a lot more drastic climate change in the future.